we're just leaving the mountain a little early today. I'm gonna stop by and give me some food before I head into work. So this is the second day I've been on KLR after being down for about since just right after Christmas, so 2 months, 2.5 months, 3 months, something like that. The last time I rode it, I was on my way home from work. Dang, the lake looks nice today. Anyways, last time I rode it, I was on my way home from work, and the back tire blowed out. Almost put me in the ditch. I was able to save it, trailered it home, and decided to order a bunch of parts for it. So basically, aside from internal motor work, I pretty much rebuilt the whole bike. I did a lot of rearranging to the cockpit area. Probably 2 years ago, after I had the bike for a while. This bike stock, the windshield comes up here, so I bought the 4-inch windshield riser for it, and it pushes the air up, so it was hitting me in the chest with the stock shield, and then when I put that 4-inch riser on it, it hit me right at the top of my helmet. So one of the things I noticed some other guys run is that windshield extension. And so I went ahead and bought it, and that's a super cheap one. I don't know, I think it was like $12 shipped to the door. And it attaches to the windshield nicely, but the little arms that are meant to allow it to adjust up and down are really cheap. I already lost one of the pieces. It's zip tied together. But even being, it works as it's designed to work. The wind no longer hits me in the helmet. It goes over the top of my helmet now. It's blocked. And so this morning it was like 45 degrees, and I took my liners out yesterday afternoon, and having that extra blockage really helped keep me. I want to know who that guy is. I see him all the time. He's always got that kayak on top. I need to meet up with him so we can kayak together. But having that extra extension on top really helped block the wind. From that windshield extension, with the riser, I got this metal dash, and I'd always wanted to mount a phone holder on there, because everything I was running was on the handlebars, and I wanted it to be stationary. When I turned my bars, it would turn. And I had gone to Walmart and bought several cheap phone mounts, and they worked, but they were sketchy at best. I was just too stubborn to spend the money on the ram mount. So I finally spent the money on the rim mount. I got the X-grip ball mount with the arm to stationary ball mount on the dash, and it works pretty well. I don't have a worry that the phone's gonna fly out, but for whatever reason it twists like this, and I haven't figured out how to lock it yet. But I also haven't spent a lot of time looking into it. I just put the phone in there and go. It works for my GPS, so I can see what music I have playing. And then down from there to the handlebars, I had done a lot of research trying to figure out what guys were doing to have a more comfortable ride. And like The two biggest things on the KLR forum were probably changing the seat and then changing the handlebars. Yeah, thanks, guy. So what I went ahead and did was I put 2-inch risers on it, made by Rocks, and I've got them kind of back towards me at a 45-degree angle. On the KLR forum, a lot of the guys mentioned going with Pro Taper ATD high bars, and I guess there was such a market for it. The Pro Taper actually designed a adventure high bar that were designed for adventure bikes, and so they had a real high curve on each side, got your hands higher up. I wasn't sure that I wanted to go that high, so I found Tusk made a stock size 7/8 handlebar, but in mid-rise, and just a tad wider as well. So I went with the Tusk bars. I went ahead and went with the Tusk hand guards, Renthal diamond grips. What I like about these grips, the grips I had before were the Pro Taper pillow tops. They were pretty bulky. These grips are skinny. I think they were obviously designed for a dirt bike, but I feel like I can actually grab a hold of the bar really well. On my stock handlebar, I had a KLR handlebar back here, and it was convenient. I could put like my tire pressure gauge in there and my battery bank, but I really like the way this looks, so I wanted to do away with the bar bag. And so doing away with the bar bag meant I didn't have a way to charge my phone while it was mounted up front, so I went ahead and installed a dual 12-port, dual-port 12-volt hookup, and my charger plugs right in. I can keep my device on charge while I'm riding. And then over here, I had been nervous about buying this thing. It's an Atlas throttle lock. My buddy Hunter bought one for his V-Strom, loved it, highly recommended it, so I bought it. And I will say, I don't know what I've been doing this whole time. If I could just lock that throttle like that, now my throttle hands, you know, I can shake it out or whatever. I don't have to have it right on there. Right now, it comes with different size friction pads. Right now I have a medium on there. I actually need to go with the bigger one, because after a few seconds it tries to start rolling back on me. I don't want to stay. But even with it not staying, it still is nice to be able to lock it and have your hand free for a few minutes. Fueled up, ready to go. This bike, I forget, this tank is twice, 3 times the size of the tank on the Bolt. I normally go about 100 miles or something like that on the Bolt. I get about almost 300 on this tank. Talking on before I stopped to get gas, I was telling you guys what all I've done to this bike. I think I've pretty much covered the whole cockpit area. Aside from the stuff I done on the cockpit area, I put those crash bars on. They're made by Tusk. I bought them specifically because I had already bought a skid plate. The skid plate's made by Enduro Engineering. And I bought the Enduro Engineering skid plate specifically because I liked how far back on the frame it covered. And also it had a spot designed into the skid so that you could still access the oil ring without having to pull the skid all the way off. With all that being said, the reason why that matters is because some skid plates only work with certain crash bars, and certain crash bars only work with certain skid plates. The reviews I read, all the guys were using the Enduro Engineering skid plate or using the Tusk crash bars, and it worked perfectly. And it really wasn't all that challenging to put them on. Anybody with a little bit of mechanical ability can do it. So moving further back from the skid plate and the crash bars, I've got new, I bought a kit, a Kawasaki OEM. It's Road King Center there. Anyways, I bought a Kawasaki OEM chain kit, and it is meant to replace rear sprocket, front countershaft sprocket, chain, and I didn't realize, but it also came with rear sprocket stud nuts, front countershaft crush ring, and then it also came with a cotter pin for the axle to put between the castle nut. And it's stock. It's 43 rear, and I believe it's either a 14 or 16 front. I had a 17 on it, and that was pretty good for long runs, but I just wanted to go back stock with everything. So stock sprockets, I put the stock chain on it. It's an O-ring chain, 121 or 122 links. Rivet style master. Got that on there. Got it adjusted. I've got Tusk large panniers on it. Those have also been awesome. Being able to just pull them off and carry them into a hotel or whatever with you. They also offer a little bit of crash protection with the boxes on and with them off. The racks they mount to when they're off is sort of like crash bars for the back. Something that I've been looking to do since I bought the bike and just never did is the Eagle Mic vacuum petcock delete. Apparently it's a fail point. I have 50,000 miles on this bike and no issues with the petcock specifically, but apparently eventually the vacuum stops working or something along those lines. So I just went ahead and bought the new petcock and the vacuum plug from Eagle Mic. I already had the carburetor out anyways because I was cleaning it real well, and I had an all balls racing carburetor rebuild, new main jet, new pilot jet, new float stop, new gaskets for the bowl and the diaphragm. So I went ahead and did the carburetor rebuild, adjusted the floats, did the vacuum plug for the petcock delete, That kit, the Petcock Delete, also came with a new gas line from the tank to the carburetor. I went ahead and cut it in half and put a K&N Performance motorcycle fuel filter on the fuel line between the tank and the carburetor. And then one of the things I had done by mistake, at some point I had pulled the Petcock, the stock Petcock out, thinking that my filters on the end of the Petcock tubes were clogged. Ended up pulling the filters off and then ruining them and not being able to get them back on. So basically I just had a Petcock there with no tubes. I didn't have a main tube or a reservoir tube or filters. Threw a straight fuel line into a carburetor with no filter. So I was just getting all kinds of dirty gas. I didn't know what my fuel range was because when I ran out, I ran out. So I never let it get to that point. But now with the new Petcock, I've got a main tube, a reserve tube, filters on both, and I have the filter in the main fuel line to the carburetor. So I've got it pretty redundant on the filtration there. I just have to remember to turn the gas off. You know, with the gas just sitting there in the bowl, it's flooded almost every time I go to crank it, except for when I remember to turn it off. Also, I don't know if it's an issue with this bike or not, but I was reading where guys have issues with the bowl overfilling and then filling in the crankcase. I don't want to have to deal with that, so I've got to start remembering to turn it off. I put new tires on, Shinko 705 Adventures on front and back. It's the second time I've ran these tires. I really like them. They do great on the road. They do well enough off-road. Not that I'm doing anything super hard anyways, but what I have done, they do well. New tubes, front and rear. I ordered 2 spare front and 2 spare rear tubes. Ended up pinching one of the rear tubes, trying to put it in. So now I've only got the one that's in the tire. I'm gonna order another one. And something that was happening before I did the carburetor rebuild was when I would choke the bike to start it, it was running super rich, so the header pipe would just start glowing cherry red. And the radiator reservoir tank is right above that. And eventually what it did is it melted the tank where the hose from the radiator overflow plugs into the tank. It's kind of cool how it done it. It actually sealed the hole on the tank and left the fitting inside the hose, basically sealing the hose. So I'm not really losing any water and I'm not having any issues with it running hot. So I went ahead and ordered a reservoir tank, hose and all that for it. It should be here this week. I'll go ahead and get it on. Once I get that done and the brakes done, I would almost be confident again to do a multi-state trip. Not that it's a huge issue if I had to stop and pull the carburetor off and work on it. That's part of the reason why I bought the bike, so that it would be simple enough to work on. And I've done enough work on this thing now that I'm fairly good at it. But it's just annoying to have to stop for an hour and pull the carb off. But it's like after a while, you just end up with so much stuff in your panniers. It's like, what? Do I need that? Throw it out. Do I need that? Throw it out. So yeah, I guess that'll be it for my first motovlog. I made a post on my messenger story early this morning saying that I was going to be doing the motovlog soon. Asked if anyone had any recommendations on topics, and of course Hunter was the only one who replied with a topic. So I'm gonna send it with his topic probably on the next video. Yeah, that'll be it until the next one. Later.